rolling. Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Juice here with another episode of Mental Health Monday. That's what we're going to call it for now, since I haven't come up with any titles for this. And we're going to be talking about dating with ADHD, having ADHD, living with ADHD.
All those things.
Is it ADHD now? What do they call it?
It's ADHD. If you have both, like autism and ADHD, they do like, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's like AUDHD.
Okay. Well, how do we pronounce your name? Imani. Okay, this is my partner, guys. Imani, say hi.
Hello.
That's your personal camera right there. You can just look at it anytime you have like qualms with things. And we're talking about dating each other, which has been fascinating, interesting, entertaining. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Enlightening.
All right. Well,
all those E words.
Let me grab my phone so I could like ask you a question about what is it like. You're actually the reason that I've created ADHD content on GetHomeSafe, the platform.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
It's really awesome.
Yeah. I was like, I'm dating you. You've been teaching me a lot, especially you found out you had ADHD while we were dating.
Yes. It was the year after we started dating. It was 2021.
So 2021?
Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
Weird. It was very weird because it started because I followed someone with ADHD and she would post stuff.
Yeah.
And for months I'd see the meme she posts. I'm like, oh, that's funny. I do that too. Oh wow, I do that too. Oh yeah, I do that.
The list started getting way too long.
It was so long. And like it's kind of like, isolated, you know, people think a lot and, they can be disorganized, but all those things together, it was too much. So I messaged her and she sent me a test.
Do you remember her name?
The page is The Chronic Couple, because they both have chronic illnesses and either autism or ADHD. And her name is Brandy. And
you followed her because you have a chronic illness also.
Yes.
That's a topic for another day.
Yeah. So I messaged her kind of making a joke about how much I was relating to what she was posting. And she sent me a test, which I took it and it was like, oh yeah, you probably have it. So I was in therapy at the time, fortunately.
From you probably have it to I was actually in therapy during this discovery.
I was.
Yeah.
And
So like you were in a therapy session mid-discovery?
No.
Okay.
I was in therapy, like I was going to a therapist regularly at the time. But that was more for, I have generalized anxiety, and that was kind of what we were working on.
What's generalized anxiety like? I don't think I've ever asked you. I think I just heard the word anxiety and I was like, bet.
I don't remember the exact, definition or how they describe. You have anxiety generally. You are just generally anxious.
An anxious person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I found kind of reading up about ADHD and following people who have it is a lot of times women, especially who have ADHD, they will go to therapy for something like anxiety. And once they work on that, it's like the anxiety is the iceberg you can see and the ADHD is at the bottom. So you work on the anxiety and that kind of sometimes can counteract the symptoms of ADHD and then the anxiety is not as bad and the ADHD is like, hey, how you doing? So
it's like a gateway drug? Where you take one thing and it leads to other things, discovery-wise?
Sorta, yeah. But I'm getting off topic. So
no, that's very on topic actually. Yeah, things I've never asked about until now.
Yeah, because I knew we were doing this, so I was kind of like trying to think back.
You were connecting the dots from back in the day.
Yeah. Okay. So I went to my therapist and she gave me a test that was from like the American Psychology Association. And it was like, yeah.
It's like, oh no, you got it. You got all that good stuff. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. You the one. You the one in the two. Yeah.
And it was so strange because I think people have like a picture of what ADHD looks like, and it's that little boy who can't sit still. And I was not that.
Yeah. You were quiet as kept.
I was quiet as kept. My head was never paying attention, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was very hard. It's always been hard for me to, like key in the whole time someone is talking.
And that's interesting that you'd say that, because, like, you're a good student.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked good jobs that you can't get unless you have a reinforced proof of I'm good on the education front and I can memorize things.
Yeah.
And you, from all your jobs in the recent, I'd say 5 years, you've been in the top 10 percentile of wherever you work when it comes to the other people that work with you.
And I've thought about that because, I've thought about, like, how could I have had it, and still be functioning? But just because you're functioning really well doesn't mean you're functioning as well as you can.
Okay.
So I've always felt like I should be doing better. Like, are
you not? Do you feel sometimes you're not doing well?
Well, more so like in school.
So you were already good and you felt you could have been better than where you were.
Yeah, I felt like something was holding me back. And I've heard a lot of people with inattentive ADHD say that. Like, it feels like I'm never caught up. Something's keeping me from keeping track of all of it and just performing in the way that I can. And I remember in high school especially, I was just like, why am I not, like, I know I'm smart. I know I'm capable. And I was getting good grades. I was in a magnet high school for science. And I was getting pretty good grades, but something told me that wasn't as far as I could go or as well as I could do. And part of it was anxiety, but part of it was also ADHD.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
For anybody watching, sorry, it's your boy Juice Jones from GetHomeSafe. I've been doing mental health and wellness outreach from about 2019 to present. This is my partner, Imani. We're talking about ADHD today because, A, I've always felt it would be nice to share parts of my relationship and why I'm so focused on ADHD when I speak on it. And then B, outside of just educating everybody on what is ADHD, how does it function, how does it work, I think it would be really nice to just hear about, like, what's the realistic experiences that surround someone's with ADHD and the person that dates them. Did I word that correctly? Was that, like, said well?
No, that's good.
It's good questions and statements. Thank you. All right, so how does one cope with ADHD? Is there a cope? Do you cope?
I'm still figuring it out. I think part of it is not fighting it. Part of it. So, for instance,
what does fighting ADHD look like exactly?
So, a big thing that most people with ADHD do is fidget.
Oh.
Like, if you noticed, if you notice, I am never.
Fidget?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do this all the time. And, like, if you notice, I am almost never completely still. Like, I'm doing this, or my toes are tapping, and it's not conscious, but I'm aware, but also I'm comfortable with you. I
think at first I noticed it, and then I figured out ways to ignore your fidgets. I think that's what I do. At first it was like, hey man, who making all that bumper clock noise over there, bro? But then it was like, all right, so you know how you've been around someone long enough so you could tell what they're doing isn't on purpose, and that's just a part of who they are. That's what it's been for me when it comes to you. And then at a certain point, I think it was like, well, we should probably accept that the person who's doing this probably needs this.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not an issue, because, like, an issue is you leave the toilet seat up. That's like an issue. You feel what I'm saying? An issue is you forgot to close the car door and you don't park in a public driveway. You park on the street.
Yeah.
And you went to sleep and your door was just open all night. By the way. Thank you. No, you haven't. But, like, that's what a problem is. But I think fidgeting is more of a personal space thing. So for other people, I could see how, like, someone fidgeting would drive them crazy, like adults with kids fidgeting, and they're just like, you need to stop moving around. Well, it's like, well, because you're the adult who went to the 9 to 5 that they don't like, and you need peace. But it's like, maybe you should just make space for that kid to fidget when they fidget, and hopefully they could learn to better handle their fidgeting around you who's annoyed by it.
And I learned very early on that it's something I needed to hide.
Oh.
Like for instance, I tend to, like, if I'm standing up, I tend to, like, rock back and forth.
Yeah.
And I just know instinctively around certain people or in certain situations, I need to not do that. But after I got diagnosed, as I was thinking about it, I realized one of the hardest things for me is, like, if we're talking and you're doing most of the talking, it is very hard for me to concentrate.
When you said that, I just heard the song Rocket Man playing in the background. Rocket Man! So
no, but that's how
you just slowly go into your own zone. and like, so for you, is there a little voice that says, hey man, he's losing you? Hey, he's losing you. Yo, come back, he's losing you? Or is it just at a certain point you'll hear a word and it's like, oh, I missed those sentences?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I won't realize I've checked out until you say something. I'm like, oh, wait, I don't know what led up to that.
Do you ever feel guilty about checking out and checking back in on someone who's talking to you? Is it you care about them so you feel guilty, or is it just in general? Like someone you work with could be telling you something and you're missing it because you're checking out in the middle of them talking.
I'm not going to lie. There are some people that I don't mind that I missed what they said. But mostly
You said I don't mind I hear their voice. Okay.
I don't want people to think that I don't want... It's like there's going to be a test later.
Okay.
So I don't want this to be brought up later and I don't know what was said, or like I didn't get the whole picture. So I realized, for as long as I can remember, if I had closed-toe shoes on, while somebody was talking, I would be tapping my toes in my shoes. And
but you had to make sure it's closed.
Exactly.
Shoes.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that helped me to, like, if I'm fidgeting, part of my brain is occupied, so it's easier for me to concentrate on what you're saying.
Is that the artist in you? Or just another part of your brain in general?
I think it's because I have so many thoughts going on at the same time.
We talked about that earlier today.
Yeah.
You naturally are juggling 10 thoughts every day.
I've heard it described as, like, you have a bunch of voices in your head, but it's all you. It's not like Split, where there's a bunch of different characters. It is all you, and you are like thinking about, oh, I need to get the clothes out of the laundry, and I need to make sure I do this, and I wonder if, or a song is playing. All these things are happening at one time, and you're trying to, like, if you're alone, you're trying to just grasp onto the thought that matters.
I feel like I would drown.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that was not normal. I didn't know that was normal. I didn't know, like, if you don't know what's going on in other people's heads, if no one talks about it, that's just you. So
when you got hit with that comparison from social media,
it's like, that's
maybe I'm a little bit more closely related than I originally thought.
I'm different.
Yeah.
But so when I was unemployed in 2021, I decided, because most of my interviews were online, so I was like, okay, I'm going to have something to fidget with. So like, I'm not going to try to fight the fidget anymore, as long as when I can. So they're not going to see me. They're not going to see my hands. They're just going to see this. And I noticed that when I started doing that, I was less anxious. I felt like my words were more coherent and they were coming out better. I could focus on their questions better. And it was like, I think the first time I did it, I was like, oh my God. Wow. I was 30. I was 30 years old, and I'm learning this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning this stuff.
Yeah. Is that uncomfortable learning yourself on this level at this age? Does this feel like at this big old age to you, or does it feel like maybe I should give myself more time?
I'm trying not to big old age myself too much, but it would have been nice to know, especially in college, in high school.
Do you think the people around you would have handled that correctly, though, all things considered?
No.
Because I think you being comfortable around me has made it easier for you to divulge certain things and not be judged, just be heard, and then we both say, all right, well, how should we approach this then, now that we have this new thing that's here?
I think now that I've learned about it and I can sort of kind of speak on why I'm this way, it's easier for the people around me to understand. But I think as a child, like, I was high functioning. I got
High
good
functioning
grades.
ADHD, high functioning depression, high functioning in general. Like,
High functioning.
I outperform everyone.
So, you know how they say the squeaky wheel gets the grease? I was not a squeaky wheel. I got really good grades. I wasn't I was forgetful. Now, my grandmother has a joke that you ask Imani to go downstairs and get something, she gonna go downstairs, she gonna forget. Like, I had to learn that about myself and be like, okay, if she says, when you get a chance, could you get up and do it now, because you're going to forget. And sometimes I still forget. And it's little stuff like that where it didn't seem like a thing, but altogether it is a thing.
Does that haunt you? Or do you just do such a great job of self-managing? You're like, this is fine. It could be worse.
I don't know if it haunts me. It makes me sad sometimes.
Does it?
Yeah.
Really?
'Cause
you mean for like that example, or other things that come with ADHD?
Just like going back to the whole I could be doing better and I don't know why I'm not. That's because I was very hard on myself, and my family is full of intellectuals. Like, my grandfather was a college professor at the University of Maryland, so grades are very important. It's not like they were beating it into me that I had to get good grades, but I felt
as your grades are fine, you should be okay. So what's the issue?
I felt the expectation, and I had high expectations of myself, and I knew I was smart. Except for math.
Well, hey, you can't be perfect. Were you expecting yourself to be perfect?
No, I think I had a good estimation of my intelligence, but just because you're smart doesn't mean, like, that's not the only thing.
Yeah.
There's focus, there's your memory, do you have a million thoughts going in your head at a time so that you can't focus on the important ones? Those matter too.
Does taking notes help, or do you forget about the notes anyway?
So I'm working on that.
Taking notes?
Yes.
I think you do a great job with the calendar. You do a better job with your calendar than I do.
Thank you.
I am terrible with the calendar.
It has to be in the calendar. It has to.
If it's not in the calendar, it doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
Yeah.
Even small stuff like.
You reminded me about today, and I was like, I didn't know we were doing today.
We were supposed to do it last week. And I reminded you about it last week because
life came at us fast.
It did. It was just fine. But it's like, I think if it's something for somebody else, it's more important for me to remember than it is for myself. Because I don't want to let other people down.
What about yourself, though? Do you ever let yourself down?
Yeah.
Or is there more pressure when it's other people, though?
It's more pressure, but I think the pressure is mostly me.
Okay.
Because I try to remind myself that, like, no one expects as much from me as I be expected from me. So
I don't expect much from you. It's not said in a very insulting way. It's not meant that way.
I know what you mean.
Let me clarify for everybody. Let me clarify for everybody, because that I can see how someone would just be chilling and just hear that, like, Oh wow, he has zero expectancies of his partner. That's crazy.
Wow.
So there's something that I say to you often, like every now and then I'll bring it up. And I think it goes, you're allowed to be whoever you need to be when you wake up. While dating you, though, it's my job to be able to accept that person for who they are and what they have going on. And with that, what it says is, because I've learned, hey, she has a habit of forgetting, but it's not just a habit. There's actually a whole methodical thing going on in her brain, chemical-wise, behind it, of like, I don't ever get mad at like little things. So like right now, we got like wild mosquito situation outside our window, right? And we can't open the bathroom door anymore. And I'm like, hey, just be sure to leave the bathroom door open.
And because of the issue where we had to close the door, we
now you have that old habit from before of, no, you got to close the door. And now there's this new habit of, no, you got to keep the door open. And for you, it's you're battling the old version of yourself who had to work really hard to become that version. And now you're working on this new version of yourself, and the new version of yourself that's like, hey, we have to keep the door open because there's less ventilation in there. It's like, but you remember what it was like before we had to keep the door open?
And it became a reflex. Like, I leave the bathroom, I close the door.
Yeah. And that's why I think I try to stay even on stuff like that. Like, I don't let myself get annoyed at that. Or if I do get annoyed, I try to make sure when I talk to you, you don't get to feel or hear the irritation. Because it's just like, but she's trying though. Like my whole thing is like, hey, you don't have to be perfect. Are you trying? That's it. Just are they trying? If they're not trying, I was like, oh, all right, we don't gotta give a fuck then. But if they're trying, oh no, they're trying though. Like I don't think it'd be fair to ask too much of someone who, in your case, you technically have 5 different things. 2 are related to yourself mentally and 3 are physical. And then it's like, oh, but I'm supposed to have a good day? But I'm not an ordinary person, Juice. So I'm just like, I think anything in life that would help the good day be a better day, and just being appreciative of at least you have a good day today, that's cool. So for you, that's why I'm like, hey man, whoever you wake up as, just let me know what's going on with you. It's
always a surprise. You just never know.
Yeah, you don't. You don't. Alright, so do you have any questions for me?
What is it like? You kind of touched on what it's like dating someone with ADHD.
Do you want a whole painted picture, or you just want a little section? Because I just gave you a little section.
Okay, what was it like when you were first learning that I had it?
I was wondering why cabinets were just left open at certain random times. Like why is this person not shutting the door? And I think this was before we moved in together. I was just like, I think before I was like, hey, let's move in together, I didn't have reservations, but I did want to, you would do things that I'd be like, hey, would you be okay with living with someone who does that? Hey, would you be okay with sharing your space with someone that does that?
I think that's a fair question.
Hey, do you know how to not be rude when someone does something that you've been raised with? And can you meet them where they are? Or are you just gonna insult them until they get it right? Because like I come from a family of like, we're Jamaicans. We insult first before you're spoken to correctly. That's just what being Caribbean has been for like a lot of us. So like with you, I think it was you're like, if you were a Pokemon, you'd be like 99% heart. Like she tries so hard. And like I know that you try to build systems. I've noticed that. I know that you put effort in, okay, if I have 5 things, just remember the first 2 things. And if I can't get to the other 3 things, it's okay. Did I try to get to the 2 things, right?
I make lists a lot. Like, even if it's the things I want to do in the next 2 hours, sometimes if I'm like stuck in a whirlwind of things I feel like I need to do, I will stop and I'll put them down in my notes app.
I think one thing that did annoy me early was you getting ready early, but that I don't think is related to just ADHD. I think that's a fear of, because you get body aches and pains. So like with people who have body aches and pains, there's this, we need to get it done now because like in 5 minutes I may not be the person you need me to be. And that's like a literal thing. That's not like a mental I'm checking out thing. That's it's literally debilitatingly, I can't put my socks on, I'm gonna just lay in bed.
And even with the pain, when the pain is low, it takes me longer to do stuff.
Because your body has spent a whole bunch of energy fighting that pain. So when that happens, it's just like, But like, on your end, you shouldn't have to, as a person who's going through what you're going through, I don't think you should always have to explain to someone who's around you as much as I am, oh, well, I'm going through this, and I'm going through this, and I'm going through this. It's like, fam, this person, chances are, probability-wise, they're going to be going through something today. So, like,
at any given moment,
are you keeping in mind that they're going through the thing, or do they just need to suck it up and get it together? On certain days, I've seen you suck it up. That's effort. On days you can't suck it up, you know what you do? You throw the straw away. You're like, ah.
And I try to do that early too.
Yeah.
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 You said something that reminded me of a meme I saw, which I feel like perfectly a meme or a TikTok, I guess, that perfectly like illustrated your mind when you have ADHD. So like it showed a regular person, they're brushing their teeth, they notice that there's
oh god, keep going now, go ahead, because I've seen this, I've seen you do this, go ahead.
Yeah,
go.
They notice that there's no toilet paper on the roll, so after they finish brushing their teeth, they put the toothbrush away and they put toilet paper on the roll. A person with ADHD notices it and it's like, well, in 2 seconds, I'm going to forget that there's no toilet paper on that roll. So you're trying to brush your teeth and you're trying to take the roll off and put the roll on, and you're not doing either one of them very well, but you're trying to do both because neither of them might get done if you don't try.
There's been times that I've observed you try and do something and I've walked you through it. Like, hey, do that, and then when you're done, do that. And you'll be like, oh, but I'll forget. I say, no, I'll remind you. And then you'll do it, right? And I'll see you forget, and I'll be like, oh, hey, please remember to do the thing. And sometimes that language is just so much better than, oh, you forgot to do the thing again. Of course she did. We both acknowledge, yo, she might forget. What's the language you're going to use to get her back on track? She's already trying, because like you've had the convo with her. And I think as a partner, I don't treat you as a responsibility. That would always suck if like the person like, you're everything you do is my responsibility. No. I treat you as a person who happens to be going from hotel to hotel trying to figure out what baggage should she bring with her today. And I'm like, oh, just take the little bag. Oh, but the other ones, they're fine.
Oh, and once you decide what bag, 2 things from the bag are gone, and you don't know what happened to them. And
I'm always in a corner to say, hey, just don't rummage. Don't rummage. We know why you shouldn't rummage. Don't rummage. That's it. And then I think most folks who have ADHD, from what I've observed, you guys are very quirky. Like there's and I don't know if it's habits, I don't know if it's part of coping. I wouldn't refer to it as fidgeting, but like it's very, if I have a window and my focus is there, please don't talk to me. Yeah. Because if I lose this focus, I may not find it until next Wednesday.
And I've always been like that.
Yeah.
And like,
I have to just not take it personal.
You've had to remind me to eat, because I do not eat.
Not a person. And you're a foodie, which like sucks. So like you not eating as someone that enjoys food is kind of sad sometimes, because it's just like, but you like their burgers. Because the spell will be broken
if I stand up. If I remove my hands from this keyboard.
If I stare at that one roll of toilet paper too long.
Especially if it's something I've been meaning to do for a while. it's like, well, that's it. I'm doing this now. This is where I am.
Yeah. What do you do to stay focused?
You mean in general?
Just in those moments, so you don't break the spell.
Well, as long as you don't veer, like as long as you don't pause to get something to eat or look at that Instagram notification. That's why when I'm working, I have my phone on the like do not disturb thing. But that is like hyper focus mode, so you don't want to do anything else. It's all the other times where it's hard to stay focused.
What advice would you give people who's dating someone with ADHD?
Patience. Always remember they are always doing their best.
No, are you telling from your point of view?
Yeah,
okay.
Like if you were like if I'm talking to you as somebody who is dating someone with ADHD who is not me, they are always doing their best. They are trying their hardest.
What if they don't care in the relationship?
If the ADHD person doesn't care?
Yeah, is that like a different
topic? That
topic?
might be a different topic, because I feel like that's an issue that even if they didn't have ADHD, that would be a problem.
Do you think, has caring too much ever gotten in the way of you when it comes to deal with ADHD and dating?
Well, I didn't know I had it until I was with you. So I'm not sure how much it affected my other ones. I think the anxiety was more of a problem.
In your other dating life.
Yes.
And then when ADHD got there, you're like, oh, that makes sense with so many things.
Yeah.
Really?
I think so.
I think... Was there anything that you... No, you finish first.
I think it's both easier and harder now. Because... Easier and harder? Goddamn. Easier because I know, and I have somebody who doesn't make me feel guilty or less than for leaving cabinets open.
So do I need to make you feel guilty, or I'm doing a good job?
You're doing a good job. Do not make me feel guilty.
You could be into that. You could be like, what, some guilt every now and then wouldn't be bad.
You said this before, like I beat myself up. So don't nobody else need to do that.
I think that's also one very particular thing within our relationship dynamic. When you have made mistakes in the past, I'm just like, well, that's the end of the conversation. It's never been, well, when are you going to deliver your pound of flesh? It's never been, you owe me. It's always been, you got this.
I think a lot, like when we've had arguments or whatever, I feel like we both know, like you'll know, you know what, you right, I think we're both like that.
Beating up on ourselves?
No, like we understand what
we did wrong.
Yeah.
I think did we have to grow to get to that point? Have we been like that for most of the relationship?
I think
we don't get me wrong. We have a lot of things we disagree on. That's not what the question is. I don't want to make this out to be like every convo has been and every argument has been mature. What you're saying, and I think what you're saying is that one convo that we have, we're not afraid to spin the block and have that conversation. But when we do have that conversation, there's less frustration present from when the initial thing happened.
Yeah, and it's not a guilt trippy conversation.
I think my conversations when I spin the block, because I'm the woman in the relationship. Because I'm the woman in the relationship.
It's funny, but it's true.
When I spin the block, I'm usually like, okay, well, we had this initial problem, whether it be me or you. What should our concerns be going forward? Because I'm still gonna fuck up. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna do whatever I want to do, but I do want to keep in mind where did I go wrong or where did you go wrong so we could put you or me in positions for that to just not happen.
The first time I like brought something to you that you were doing that was bothering me, it was so funny because I had been thinking about it and how to word it for so long, and you were like, I could see how you'd feel that way. Maybe. What would you think if we tried? I'm looking at you like...
I remember you coming to me a couple of days later and saying it was so uncomfortable how constructive that was. Like, why was the hard conversation that easy to have?
Like, I felt 70% relieved, 30% like, so that's it? There's no struggle.
Did that have you sitting on pins and needles like, hey, is he going to bring this back in a vicious manner later? Did you ever doubt the amount of sincereness in that convo? Because I would have. I'd be, I don't know if I should trust her.
I did. I was like waiting to see if you were going to do what you said you were going to do.
Did I do the thing? I don't even remember what it was.
I remember.
Was there effort?
Yes, there was effort. There was effort. I think certain circumstances had to change, but there was effort. I think
that's another thing too.
Yeah.
I make it a point to forget. Like, whatever an issue is, I would rather hold on to the feeling of something being an issue, but I'd rather make it a point to not remember every single detail that led to that issue. Because what that does is I'll have a feeling that says, hey, remember, you shouldn't do that, or remember, you have to be careful of that. But I don't want my core memories to be like, hey, you remember that time that you messed up? You remember what that led to? You remember what it did to the room? You remember how not good of a person you were in that time? Do better.
You're talking about me or you? Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Do better.
Do better.
Do better. Do better.
I feel like the question that you asked me originally, there was something else I was going to say, but it probably doesn't matter.
This is you giving advice to someone dating someone with ADHD?
I said they're doing their best. And learning about it.
ADHD, like doing your own research?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's true for, like, if they have anything. Like, if they have diabetes or bipolar disorder.
I'd say it's good to do research, yes, but please don't apply everything that you've learned research-wise to that person's situation.
That's true,
because everyone's not the same. There's this thing that a lot of folks do, for what I've seen, where like, well, I did the research and the research says this, and even though this is your situation, the research says this, this, and this. It's like, yeah, but if the person hasn't developed to that side of diabetes, for example, or their situation, I don't think you should bring that up when they're already dealing with what's in front of them right now, which is more immediate because that is their present.
I think it's probably better if you, like, you do your research and then you go to them and be like, hey, I've been reading, such and such. Is it okay if we talk about, like, what things might apply to you and stuff like that?
Research without projection.
Yeah, because it's like you said, certain people have maybe don't have certain parts of ADHD or systems that work for some people might not work for other people. So yeah,
and that kind of it creates space for people to be seen in totality and not just, I did research, so now you're only the research.
Yeah,
you feel what I'm saying? Because like, I don't think you've been everything I've heard about ADHD from you, I've only seen 3 consistent things.
What?
Forgetting to close the cabinets. The other 2 things, your forgetfulness in general, but like, I don't think that's fair to say you're forgetful. I think it's fair to say if you're told something, you got to give the person with ADHD 10 minutes to work on remembering that thing. So if I tell you one thing and I lead you with like 3 other things, she's not gonna. No. You
give me A, B, and C. A is gone. Halfway through B, A is gone.
You're on M somehow. It's just like, that's not. That's a very unrealistic expectation with someone who like has ADHD. And like, I do it to you all the time. That's how I know, like, hey, we actually had a talk, or it's like, just give me a second. Or you'll say, wait, what was the last thing you said?
Yeah.
And then that lets me know I might need to slow down and let's stay on this topic a little bit more instead of just trying to, like, stuff everything I can into the Easter basket. Like, all the eggs. Like, no, you don't got to do that.
I think I've been working on trying, like, being okay with having you repeat things because it's better. Sometimes I'll, like, feel embarrassed about it. Like,
Really?
he's been talking. Yeah.
When it comes to me or just in
In
general?
general.
Okay.
But I feel like it's better for me to ask you to repeat something than you bring it up later and it's like, when did we have this conversation?
But to even that out, what I've done is I'll ask about a word that I don't understand, right? So every time we have a conversation where you need me to repeat something, in comparison, if you say a word that I don't understand, I'll be like, wait, what's that word? And then I'll be like, do you happen to know the meaning of that word? And it's like, do you know where that word came from? Because that's a wild word. Or I'll, like, make SAT jokes because it's like, I don't want you to feel like you're the only one that's always asking for someone to repeat something or focused, a little bit overly focused on things. Because, you know, for me, I do a lot of public speaking. So for me, the benefit of you with your big old vocabulary that you be bringing into our everyday
Hella
life,
bookworm.
right? I should take that opportunity to ask, and for you dealing with what you're dealing with, I should take an opportunity for, like, okay, so I'm not the only one that's doing this in a relationship. There's versions of this here. It's kind of nice. Like, I like that. Gullible ass. There you go.
What?
Hey, I'll be gullible sometimes. I'll be like, yeah, man, lay your head on this pillow real quick. You be soft.
Okay.
Different topic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But he's going somewhere, and I think I see.
I see where this is going. That's PG-13, Juice. You had another question for me. Actually, damn, I just asked someone with ADHD to remember something in 10 minutes. You ask your question, then I'll circle back.
Well, you were talking about ABC.
And then being on M all of a sudden.
Yes, and it's funny because earlier when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how if I have to do A, B, C, and D, I might forget B. And then, like, by the time I'm at C, my mind is on M. And it is so hard to just reel it back. And that's why I have to write stuff. I have so many notes.
Couldn't be me. I don't do well with a bunch of notes.
It gotta be me.
Notes are written to be forgotten.
But my
unless I'm doing something for a client, yeah.
But my question to you was going to be, what is the thing that you find hardest to relate to?
All right, so I didn't answer the question of what advice would you give someone who's dating someone with ADHD. I think my advice to them would be, I think in general, when you find out someone has something that you're dating, it's very easy to think, this is my person. And when people go with the words my person, they start painting a picture of who you are. And they don't add extra blemishes to what's going on or add extra color or like, oh, they're no longer into this thing. So what happens is they'll date someone that has a situation like yours. And instead of being understanding like they were in the beginning, they all of a sudden get tired. They're like, oh, but you still do this thing. And it's like, yeah, but that was never negotiable. I was upfront with you about what I have going on so you would understand that, like, I'm not choosing to bring this with me. By design, this is a part of who I am. Yeah. I'm working on it, and please appreciate the things that I'm doing when I can. Appreciate me for when I'm doing that, because like on certain days you may not have it. You've heard me say it before, like, hey, you're not always going to have it. You're not always going to be able to be nice. You're not always going to be able to have effort, and you're not always going to be able to be focused on whatever it is you're trying to do for the other party. So like most people would say giving grace. That's usually what folks will say, oh, you should give them more grace. And what I would say for someone that's dating someone with ADHD, it's not about just accepting them for who they are. Sometimes it's what's just as important is when you're 5 years down the road, are you still going to be supportive of who that person needs to be for themselves? Or are you going to be having a gripe with you making this decision of being there for them? Because being there for someone doesn't always mean you're being there for yourself. Those are two separate things. And a lot of folks, myself is not included in this, but a lot of folks will say, oh, I could handle that. And it's like, no, you don't need to. Don't view you dating someone who has this thing as you're handling things.
Yeah.
Right? What you need to view it as is the car that I purchased, this is the car. There's going to be all these quirks, but this is the car. Does the car still drive? Do we still go from point A to point B? Do you still enjoy the car for what the car was when you got it? Are your feelings going to change eventually in life? Yes. But, like, don't blame the car for being what the car has always been. The car has always been that. What you may need to do is you may need to readjust. You being fed up doesn't mean they need to now be punished for, like, you don't have it anymore. Or make space for you not having it. Like, you've heard me on certain days and weeks where I'm like, you know what? I don't got it. It's not about you. It's about me. I don't have it. I'll be back.
I think a lot of times people get into relationships assuming that this person will turn into the version that they want them to be. And I think you have to, on some level, be like, okay, if they stayed like this, would that be okay with you?
Yeah. Or if they didn't stay like this, would that be okay with you?
Yeah.
Because it's very unfair to shackle someone to an ideal. Like, it's just an idea. You know what's funny about ideas? Most ideas don't exist until they happen. They're just an idea. There's a probability that it can happen, or hopefully actions follow it if that's what both parties want. But it's still an idea originally before it's actually an actual thing that exists. Like babies. Then there's actions.
Yeah. Did you do the hard to relate to question?
No, I just wanted to go back to answer that question.
Yeah.
Is it hard to relate to someone with ADHD?
No, like what attribute or like symptom that you see is like the hardest to relate to, I guess?
Honestly, I think I'd play a dangerous game if that's how I was in our relationship. Like, oh, that couldn't be me though.
Oh.
Like, no, that could be. Like, just because I've never been diagnosed with ADHD or I do a great job doesn't mean I don't have it. And it doesn't mean that if I do relate to you, that's a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't treat what you have going on as like a red flag, if that makes sense. So I think what I do is like, I'll do comparisons and see some shit and I'll be like, oh, that's not me. Or I'll be like, oh, on certain days I do that, but not really. Like, you when you told me about the 10 thoughts, I was like, I could never. And like, I have a very active mind. You know that when you see me do work, when you see me take notes, when you see me get ready for these interviews, do research, make the right calls, look into laws or certain topics just to be knowledgeable. And like, I've heard you say you wish I have the focus that you see me just like lock myself in a room and really get to it. But the thing is, I'm also high functioning too, but like in terms of like, I'm too high functioning sometimes. So like, I think I'll put 5 things on my plate and I think, yeah, this plate's going to get devoured. And I'm on like thing number 3 and I'm crying in a corner saying, why did I think I had 5? And you see like just drool slowly coming out of my mouth.
I think you're ambitious.
I am.
You're very ambitious.
I am. But sometimes I do have to roll my ambitions back, or what you've seen this year, I've been better with, hey, you don't have the resources for that ambition right now. So you'd be better off making that hard call and saying, hey, we shouldn't do this. The team isn't right. Your people aren't doing what they need to. I don't have the heart or the patience to deal with that. This is a great idea.
Or like you are spread too thin.
Yeah.
You be spread too thin sometimes.
Yeah. I'm a thin piece of paper. When you see me take breaks from social media, well, the breaks from social media, which thank God I took the breaks that I took this year up to this point, termites. That was easy. That situation happened, and you and I were just like, Is that my skin crawling? I think we done here. Wait, what happened when you came in through the door? I think we're done here. But yeah, nah, I don't think I've ever looked at what you have going on and said, oh no, that's terrible. I could never. I've looked at things and said, there's a better way to approach this. I think I've done that. I think I'm really good with coming in from home late at night from work, and sitting down with you and having conversations that matter for that hour before you go to sleep. Because, we're really big on, like, great bed etiquette before going to sleep. I usually try to make sure, like, we talk about something positive. Or, like, I want to align your thoughts with, like, oh, that would be great. I want you to have that feeling when you wake up.
Future or something.
I don't want your thoughts to be pessimistic, like, oh, God, I made pasta again for the 5th time this week. Like, you get what I'm saying? I don't want... Because those thoughts and that energy does matter going into the next day. And those are things we can control. Like, your partner and what you guys talk about, you guys can control that. How we like to view things, even the most annoying things, we can control that. Even acknowledging who's not doing their part. Big Purse getting it done. Don't get me wrong. Big Purse, he getting it done. But still, we have like little things here and there, but that person's doing right by us. You feel what I'm saying? Just as a reference.
Did you say Big Purse?
Big Purse. You know who Big Purse is. Big Purse.
Oh.
Big Purse. Come on now.
Yeah.
You know about Big Purse.
I
but
about that. That's a good one.
Come on.
That's a good one.
Big Purse. But like, I think with that being said, if I was always viewing something that you did with your situation as, oh, that couldn't be me, or if I was always critiquing you in comparison to me and saying, why would you do that, instead of asking, hey, are you going to be okay doing that? It's very different. It's very different asking someone, what were you thinking? Why are you asking them, what were you thinking? It's okay to just be like, so walk me through this. like sometimes you need the person who's going through the thing as the person who's not in it. And you have to have that person that's going through the thing to hold your hand through their process. And that kind of gives you the ability to say, oh, I see what happened to you here, instead of like, you did this to us, or you did this to me. Like, no, life's already hard enough for you. You know what I'm saying? So like, as your partner, I should make it easy, or hopefully at least try to understand what got you there, and not just make it all your responsibility. Like, you are intentionally blah, 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 blah. No. You good? I feel like that was like a good last question for you.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming out today, guys. It's your boy Juice Jones and Imani. Have a little chat. Look forward at some point having a name for this or whatever, but I hope everyone learned a little bit something about living with ADHD, dating someone with ADHD, what that looks like, and then just like, a little bit more eye-opening on the experience of the people who are dealing with the things that we talk about and that we educate folks about. Like, it's not as fun as it looks, because people make a lot of great videos that are funny, but like, in reality, after that funny video is off, it is not enjoyable from what I've seen. And that's also something that's really interesting to talk about. Like, when you folks have to clean up what happens after these things happen, whether it's a phone call, feeling guilty, hopefully the other party understanding, even the folks who know what you're going through, who still like, they don't give a damn about like your feelings. I'd be like, ooh, wee. You've heard what I've had to say about certain people saying, let me get on the phone call next time, or like, hey, don't take that call, or frame it better for them because they're not getting it, no matter how much you're trying. And you are trying. And even if you aren't trying, I think for the people who aren't trying, that's okay, because them not trying, that's their capacity.
And it's like, if they aren't, it's like, okay, that's where we are. That okay, I know how much energy to put into that.
But when they do, hey, you gave me the best you got. That's it. So, like, follow, subscribe. See you guys next time. Peace.
Bye.
All right, that was good. That was good. Did you feel like you learned a lot? Or something interesting?
Not a whole lot, because I feel like it's a lot of things you said were things I've either noticed or you said before, but some of it was like, okay, that's where your brain be. That's where your brain be.
Okay, effort. Okay, all right.